The galaxy before the storm. The galaxy was full of stars, empires, and endless wars. Across the spiral arms, powerful civilizations ruled with pride and cruelty. They had fleets of thousands, weapons that could burn moons, and cities that floated in space. They believed their power would last forever. In this galaxy, Earth was small. It was a young world compared to the old alien dynasties. Many aliens spoke of humans as a curious species, full of energy but with no real place among the stars. Earth's colonies were tiny, their ships weak, and their trade routes fragile. The galaxy ignored them. To the great powers, Earth was a minor world, better suited to supplying raw minerals than fighting wars. The empire of Kareth dominated one side of the galaxy. They were reptilian, cold-blooded, with eyes like burning coals. Their fleets carried black banners, and their admirals spoke of conquest as if it was their birthright. Another empire, the Valari, had wings like living metal and voices that rang like chimes. They controlled the great trade hubs and demanded tribute from weaker worlds. Dozens of other factions rose and fell, fighting for scraps of power. To all of them, Earth was nothing. When the Kareth listed their enemies, Earth was not mentioned. When the Valari calculated threats, Earth did not appear in their charts. It was as if humans did not exist. And perhaps that was exactly what Earth wanted. In the shadows of forgotten star systems, rumors spread. Merchants whispered of human scientists vanishing into secret bases. Smugglers told tales of ships disappearing near the asteroid belts. Pirates swore they saw flashes of strange light deep inside Earth's sector, only to be silenced by fear. But most dismissed these as lies. Why should Earth hide anything? They had no strength worth hiding. Years passed. Wars raged. Alien fleets clashed in brutal battles that turned planets into ashes. In all of this chaos, Earth remained silent. Their leaders rarely spoke in the great councils of the galaxy. Their ambassadors sat quietly, listening, nodding, and rarely answering. Other empires laughed at their silence. Some called it cowardice. Others thought it was wisdom. But the silence was not empty. It was heavy, patient, like the deep breath before a storm. Alien historians wrote endless records of their victories, but none of them noticed Earth's factories growing larger. None of them saw the mining fleets working in secret belts, hauling metals away into dark space. None of them tracked the endless streams of data vanishing into Earth's private networks. Encrypted in ways no alien mind could break, humans moved quietly, but every movement had purpose. To the great empires, Earth was a background world. To itself, Earth was a forge. The galaxy believed humans were too divided, too emotional, too fragile. They saw the endless arguments of human politics, the small wars between nations, and they concluded humanity would never rise beyond mediocrity. They believed humans would remain weak forever. But the truth was different. Humanity's divisions were also its strength. Where one nation failed, another advanced. Where one leader fell, another rose with new ideas. And under the surface, behind the noise, Earth's greatest minds worked together on something the galaxy could not imagine. One Valari merchant once joked in a council hall, if humans ever built a warship, it would sink before leaving dock. The chamber roared with laughter. The joke spread across the stars, repeated in bars and on battlefields. To laugh at Earth was easy because Earth was small. But the merchant's words would one day taste like ash. Far from alien eyes, buried in black space where no charts existed, something vast was being prepared. Its frame was forged from metals mined in silence. Its engines were built with design stolen and remade from dozens of alien technologies. Its weapons were crafted not for intimidation, but for survival. Piece by piece, a shadow grew in the darkness, hidden by Earth's silence. The galaxy's powers fought each other with pride, never realizing that their pride blinded them. Their eyes were fixed on each other, not on Earth. To them, Earth was a pebble on the battlefield, too small to notice. And so they never asked the question that mattered. What if humans were not as weak as they seemed? The first signs were almost invisible. A small alien patrol disappeared near an asteroid belt, its distress signal cut short. A trader claimed he saw a giant outline moving in the void, larger than any dreadnought he had ever seen. The council dismissed him as a liar. After all, Earth could not build anything beyond small cruisers. But those who paid attention began to feel unease. It was like the quiet before thunder. When the air feels heavy and the ground waits to shake, something was coming. Something hidden in the silence of Earth's shadow. The galaxy before the storm was proud, loud, and blind. Alien rulers boasted of their fleets, their guns, their endless power. But behind Earth's quiet mask, the storm was already building. And when it finally broke, it would tear the balance of power apart. The empires did not know it, but their era was already ending. First contact with the hidden warship, the galaxy's silence broke on an ordinary day. Alien fleets patrolled the stars as usual. Traders carried goods across the lanes, and pirates stalked the weak. Nothing seemed unusual, but then the sensors of a Valari scout ship caught something strange. The ship was stationed near the outer rim, a quiet sector close to Earth's claimed space. The Valari crew expected boredom, only dust clouds, drifting asteroids, and a few human mining vessels. But then in the middle of their shift, alarm screamed. A massive energy spike flared across their screens. At first, they thought it was a star eruption or a collapsing reactor. But the readings were steady, controlled, and deliberate. The captain of the scout ship frowned. No known human ship could produce that much energy. He ordered the sensors to focus. That was when the darkness moved. Through the viewports, the crew saw a shadow taking shape. It was not a planet. It was not an asteroid. It was a ship, larger than anything they had seen before. Its armored frame stretched like a floating fortress, bristling with towers, cannons, and glowing lines that pulsed like veins of fire. The Valari captain whispered, almost in disbelief, "That cannot be human." But it was. The warship emerged from behind the asteroid belt, its engines glowing a cold blue light. Unlike the polished beauty of Valari vessels or the brutal spikes of Kareth dreadnoughts, this ship carried a different kind of design. It was simple, heavy, and unforgiving, like a blade forged to kill. It moved slowly, but every movement carried weight. Each cannon swiveled with silent precision. Each light flickered with hidden power. The alien crew felt their stomachs tighten. They were not looking at an experimental cruiser or a defensive frigate. This was something else. This was a predator. The scout captain sent an emergency signal to the nearest fleet. But before the message reached its destination, the human ship turned. For a moment, it felt like its eyes, though it had none, locked onto the Valari vessel. Then the signal cut. The scout ship never returned. News spread quickly. Rumors became fear. Entire fleets were dispatched to investigate, each believing they could expose the human trick. Admirals laughed when they heard the stories. A single human ship that large? Impossible. This is a ghost tale from weak miners. But the laughter ended when the first fleet vanished. The Kareth sent 12 war cruisers to Earth's border. They expected an easy show of force, 12 against 1. They believed the numbers spoke for themselves. But the battle did not last even an hour. Survivors from the edges of the fight told what they saw before they fled. They described beams of energy so sharp that they cut through hulls like paper. They saw missiles that did not explode with fire, but with waves of silence, turning ships into drifting corpses. They heard nothing from their commanders, only static. As the human warship carved through the fleet, one Kareth survivor, broken and terrified, repeated the same words in every interrogation. It looked at us, and it knew we were already dead. The galaxy could not ignore it now. In council halls, rulers shouted in panic. Reports came in from spies and traders. The descriptions all matched. A warship of impossible size and power, carrying the flag of Earth. The Valari whispered that it was a weapon forged in secret, hidden for decades. The Kareth accused humans of stealing alien technology. Others claimed it was not human at all, that Earth had discovered something ancient and rebuilt it. But no one could deny what was real. Fleets had been destroyed. Armadas had crumbled. And the human ship still moved in silence, its intentions unreadable. On one border world, children ran to the hills to watch the sky, where the warship drifted above the clouds like a second moon. Farmers abandoned their fields. Soldiers stood frozen, weapons in hand, knowing they could do nothing. The ship did not attack, but its presence was enough. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's balance shook. Alien admirals gathered in secret. The Kareth wanted to strike with full force, to crush Earth before its hidden strength spread. The Valari demanded caution, fearing that if this was only one ship, then humanity might hold more in reserve. Smaller empires argued, begged, and panicked, fearing they would be the next to fall. And through it all, Earth said nothing. No broadcast, no warning, no declaration of war. The warship spoke only through its silence and its destruction. To the aliens, that silence was louder than any threat. For generations, the galaxy had mocked Earth. They had called humans weak, emotional, unfit for the stars. But now, in one sudden moment, all of that arrogance collapsed. They began to ask themselves, if this is only one ship, how many more do humans hide? If Earth could build such a weapon in secret, what else were they capable of? The galaxy's rulers had always believed they were safe from Earth. Now they knew they were not. The storm had broken. And the first strike was only the beginning. The collapse of power. The galaxy had lived with power divided for centuries. The Kareth ruled with claws and fire. The Valari ruled with wealth and control of the trade routes. Other empires each held pieces of strength, locked in an endless balance. But that balance was fragile, and it depended on one shared belief, that Earth was too weak to matter. That belief died the moment the warship appeared. At first, alien leaders thought it was a threat they could crush together. Fleets were summoned. Thousands of ships filled the void near Earth's border. They stretched across space like a wall of steel, their banners glowing with the pride of their empires. Admirals spoke with confidence. One human ship cannot stand against us all. But the battle that followed did not go as they dreamed. The warship did not flee. It did not hide. It moved forward slowly, deliberately, as though daring them to strike first. And strike they did. Missiles, beams, and plasma fire filled the void. Explosions lit the dark like 1,000 suns. The galaxy watched the broadcast live, certain they were witnessing the destruction of Earth's secret. But when the light cleared, the human ship still stood. Its shields burned bright, but they held. Its hull shook, but it did not break. Then the warship answered. A single volley tore through the first line of alien cruisers. The second line followed within moments. Ships that had stood proud for decades turned into wrecks in seconds. Alien admirals shouted orders, but their voices broke under the sound of panic. The warship fired again and again, every blast precise, every strike devastating. It was not just the destruction that crushed them, it was the silence. The warship never sent threats, never roared with victory. It only moved forward, calm and cold, like a blade cutting through flesh. Entire fleets collapsed in less than an hour. Thousands of alien lives ended before they understood what was happening. The survivors scattered, running into hyperspace, their formations shattered. Across the galaxy, fear spread faster than light. On Kareth homeworlds, citizens filled the streets in protest, demanding their leaders explain how humans could do this. In Valari trading hubs, markets crashed overnight as merchants panicked, convinced that Earth would now control every route. Small empires trembled, their rulers begging for alliances that no longer mattered. The collapse was not only military, it was political, economic, and cultural. The myths of alien superiority crumbled. The laughter at Earth's name died on every tongue. Where once humans were seen as weak, now they were seen as a force no one could understand or stop. On one world, an old alien historian recorded the battle as it unfolded on public screens. His voice shook as he whispered into his recorder. I studied 1,000 wars. I wrote about 100 empires. None of them matter now. The balance is gone. The age of the old powers is over. The alien leaders tried to hide their fear. They told their citizens it was only one battle. They promised that humanity would soon be crushed. But even as they spoke, their eyes betrayed doubt. They had watched their proud fleets torn apart like glass. They had felt their strength vanish in moments. They knew the truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. The galaxy was no longer balanced. It was broken, and Earth remained silent. The warship drifted in the void, engines glowing softly, weapons still warm from the slaughter. But no message came from its commander. No demands, no declaration of conquest, nothing. To the galaxy, that silence was more terrifying than any threat. Because silence meant confidence. Silence meant patience. Silence meant the humans did not need to speak. Their power spoke for them. On smaller frontier worlds, whispers began to spread. Farmers, traders, and miners who had lived under alien rule for generations started to hope. They whispered that maybe Earth was not just defending itself. Maybe Earth would rise, and with it, those who had been crushed under alien empires for centuries would finally be free. The warship became a symbol. To the powerful, it was a nightmare. To the powerless, it was a promise. The collapse of power was not a single moment. It was a chain reaction. The more fleets fell, the more fear spread. The more fear spread, the weaker the empires became. Alliances cracked. Trade routes failed. Old enemies struck at each other, no longer fearing punishment. The galaxy unraveled piece by piece. And at the center of it all, Earth's warship drifted forward, unstoppable. Alien rulers began to meet in secret. Some begged for peace, though they had no one to speak to. Others demanded total war, though they knew it would end in ruin. For the first time in living memory, the empires of the galaxy were united in one thing only: fear of Earth. But unity in fear was fragile, and fragile things always break. The galaxy had mocked Earth. Now it trembled before it, and in that trembling silence one thought echoed everywhere. If this is only one warship, what else does Earth hide? Fear spreads across the stars. The collapse of fleets shook the galaxy, but what came after was worse. Fear began to move faster than any warship, faster than light itself. It spread through the trade routes, through whispers in marketplaces, through the silent faces of returning refugees. Every corner of the galaxy now carried the same question: what is Earth? On the Valari homeworld, markets that had thrived for centuries suddenly froze. Merchants closed their stalls. Ships refused to travel through human space. Cargo stations that once buzzed with sound now echoed with silence. Investors pulled out of major guilds, terrified that human control would soon reach every trade line. For the Valari, whose power was built on commerce, it was the beginning of collapse. In the Kareth Empire, fear was painted differently. Their people had always been told they were strongest, born for conquest, chosen to rule. But now, for the first time, citizens filled the streets chanting not for war but for survival. Crowds demanded answers from their leaders. Some burned banners of the High Admiralty, screaming that they had led the empire to doom by provoking the humans. Kareth generals, once feared by all, now found themselves facing the fury of their own people. Smaller empires trembled. For ages they had balanced between submission and survival. They paid tribute, bent their knees, and hoped the great powers would protect them. But now those powers were broken, their fleets in ruins, their voices shaking. The smaller nations turned their eyes to Earth. Some begged for protection. Others swore allegiance before a single human soldier even arrived. To them, Earth's warship was not a threat, it was a shield. Fear was not just in governments. It lived in ordinary homes. On a mining world under Valari control, children drew pictures of the human warship in their schools. Their teachers tried to hide the drawings, but the images spread. Farmers in distant colonies stayed awake at night, staring at the stars, wondering when the silhouette of that massive ship would appear above their skies. Soldiers stationed on frontier worlds whispered to each other that if the warship came, their weapons would be useless. Some even deserted, fleeing their posts rather than face the human storm. The galaxy was changing not with battles but with belief, and belief was more powerful than guns. Alien rulers attempted to control the fear. Propaganda screens blared across city plazas. Speeches promised strength, promised victory, promised that humanity would soon fall. But no matter how loud the voices, the people remembered what they had seen. They remembered fleets reduced to ashes in less than an hour. They remembered the silence of Earth's warship, drifting forward like a phantom of steel. One alien writer described it simply: "Our leaders speak, but their words break against the silence of Earth." The fear also turned inward. Empires once united began to fracture. Valari guilds accused each other of hiding human dealings. Kareth admirals blamed each other for the defeats. In smaller empires, rulers were assassinated by their own advisors, desperate to shift the galaxy's allegiance toward Earth before it was too late. Alliances crumbled. Trust vanished, and still Earth said nothing. The silence became a weapon of its own. The galaxy tried to guess Earth's plan, but every guess led to more fear. Did humanity want to conquer? Did it want revenge? Did it want to reshape the galaxy? No one knew, and not knowing was worse than knowing. On the planet Iraq, a council of scholars met in secret. They had studied empires rising and falling for thousands of years. They spoke in hushed voices, writing notes that they dared not publish. Their conclusion was simple, and it terrified them. History shows us that every empire falls when it underestimates the quiet ones. But not everyone feared in the same way. Among oppressed species, those who had lived under alien boots for centuries, hope grew from the cracks of fear. On slave worlds, whispers passed in the dark: "The humans do not kneel." On conquered colonies, rebels raised secret banners with Earth's name. For them, the warship was more than a weapon. It was a symbol of change. The galaxy trembled, but not all trembles came from terror. Some came from the first heartbeat of rebellion. Meanwhile, the warship itself remained a shadow in the stars. It drifted, sometimes appearing near trade routes, sometimes above frontier planets, sometimes vanishing into black space for days. Every time it reappeared, panic followed. Entire fleets scrambled only to watch it pass in silence. It did not always fire. It did not always kill. Sometimes it only watched. And the watching was enough, because in that watching, the galaxy saw judgment. On one distant station, a single message appeared across a private channel. No one knew if it was truly from Earth or just a rumor made by frightened minds. The message was short, only 4 words. We are awake now. The galaxy before had been loud with pride, crowded with arrogance, busy with endless war. Now it was quiet. Every empire listened for the next move. Every citizen waited for the next shadow in the stars. Fear had spread across the galaxy, and with it came the knowledge that the storm was not finished. The storm was only beginning. The message from Earth: for weeks, the galaxy lived in silence. The human warship moved like a phantom, appearing and vanishing across the stars. Every time it emerged, panic followed. Fleets scrambled, governments panicked, and citizens froze in fear. Yet the ship never spoke. No transmission, no declaration, no demands. Only silence, and silence was worse than war. The alien rulers could not endure it. They met in secret councils, their voices sharp with terror. Some demanded immediate attack, others begged for negotiation. But they all knew the truth. Their fleets could not stand, their weapons could not pierce, their walls could not hold. And still, Earth remained quiet. Then, one night cycle, the silence ended. Across thousands of systems, every holoscreen flickered. Merchants in markets, soldiers in barracks, children in schools, rulers in palaces, all saw the same transmission. A single image filled the screens, the warship framed in darkness, its weapons glowing like burning suns. For a long moment, no voice spoke. The galaxy held its breath. Then a human voice, calm and steady, broke the silence. We never sought conquest. We never sought your wars. For centuries you looked at us and saw weakness. You laughed. You ignored. You enslaved. But while you mocked us, we prepared. We built, we endured. Now you see the result. The words were not shouted. They carried no rage, no thunder. They were spoken like fact, like stone that could not be moved. And that made them more terrifying. The voice continued. We do not come to kneel. We do not come to beg. We come only to say this: humanity will never kneel again. The transmission ended. The screens went black. And the galaxy was never the same. Reactions spread like wildfire. On Kareth worlds, riots exploded. Soldiers tore off their uniforms and refused to fight. Citizens whispered the human words like a prayer: never kneel again. The Empire shook with rebellion. On Valari stations, merchants abandoned their councils, convinced their wealth meant nothing now. They spoke of shifting their trade not away from Earth, but through Earth, hoping to survive the new order. In smaller empires, rulers swore loyalty to Earth before a single human soldier arrived. They raised Earth's name in their speeches, desperate to show allegiance before it was forced upon them. And among oppressed peoples, the message spread like fire in dry grass. On slave worlds, workers carved the words into walls. On rebel stations, banners were painted in human colors. Across the galaxy, the phrase became more than a statement. It became a movement. Never kneel again. The warship itself moved once more, passing above planets, drifting through routes once controlled by the great empires. But now its presence brought not only fear but also hope. Colonies that had lived under alien boots lifted their heads to the sky, daring to believe in freedom. Pirates who once raided human ships now fled from any sign of them. The balance of the galaxy was gone, and in its place a new balance began to form, one centered on Earth. But still, questions remained. If this was only one warship, how many more had Earth built? If this was only one message, what messages would come next? And if this was Earth's warning, what would Earth's rule look like? The galaxy did not know. And the not knowing was what kept them trembling. In a quiet chamber on a distant Valari world, an old historian wrote his final record. His hand shook as he carved the words into his data slate. The galaxy will remember the day the silence broke, the day Earth's hidden warship appeared, the day the empire shattered, and the day a voice calm and cold told us we would never be masters again. For humanity, the warship was not only a weapon, it was a shield, a declaration, and a warning. For the galaxy, it was a nightmare that would never fade, because the truth had been revealed, and the truth could not be undone. Humanity had hidden its strength, and now the stars belonged to them. The storm that began in silence had ended in a single message, and the galaxy would never forget it, never kneel again.